In recent years, there have been significant changes in the way organizations and businesses communicate, collaborate, and advise. As technology improves, it becomes critical for organizations such as our Toastmasters Club to embrace and utilize this technology so they aren't left behind. Today, Josh is going to give us some information about one of those tools that can be used to help us stay ahead in this ever-changing world. The benefits of Google Apps. Josh Burns.
Thank you, Jim. Hello, Toastmasters. Welcome, guests. For almost a year now, I've been the Area 26 Governor for Toastmasters. Now, for our guests, Toastmasters is divided up into kind of levels of hierarchy. You have your club level, and then you have an area level, and it goes through the division, and then the district, and so on and so forth. So, Area Governor, basically, my job in that position is to help the clubs within Area 26. There are 4 clubs in the area. This is one of the clubs. In the time that I've spent as an area governor, I have had to help clubs with membership, have to help clubs with working together better as a unit, to help the leadership in the club better serve the members. And in that time, there is a tool, or rather a set of tools, that exist out there that I have found to be extremely useful and beneficial for organizations such as the Toastmasters Club, especially if you're a nonprofit organization like most Toastmasters Clubs are. We're a nonprofit organization. So today I want to go over some of the benefits of Google Apps, tell you what it is and how it can help an organization like our club, and then allow you guys to ask me some questions about it, because you're working with Kelly in our domain name as well as Steve as the Vice President of Public Relations. We may be trying to move over to Google Apps, and I think that would be a terrific decision for us to actually do that. It would be a great move for us. And hopefully by the end of the speech and the questions, you'll all agree with me. Google Apps, before I get into what it is, everybody here is familiar with Google? Anybody not heard of Google? You know? It's a fish from the Antarctic. Google has a number of services that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. They have email through Gmail. They have videos. They own YouTube. They have a service called Google Sites for hosting a website. They have Google Docs, which in essence is an online free version of Microsoft Office. And there are a ton of other tools, some free, some that you can pay for, most of them free, and they all work with one another to some degree. We can set up in a Google Apps environment, we can set up a Google site for the club rather than the website that we have right now. And in that, if we wanted to have a Google Calendar set up that showed special events and things that not only our members could look at, we could put it on our website, and any guests or users that visit our website could look at it and see special events and meetings and that kind of stuff. We could have a Google spreadsheet that has contact information for current officers and have that listed, feeding content on the website. So if we need to change that over, and somebody doesn't want to get in and actually edit the website itself, it'd be as easy as opening up a spreadsheet and changing some information in a few cells. Very simple. Gmail. Right now, I believe that we have email forwarding set up for the officer positions. So I know we had set something like that up. I don't think it's being used at this point. But one of the things that we can do with Google Apps, one of the things that's possible with Google Apps, when you sign up for it, is you sign up for it with your domain name, which we have as firstnevadans.org. We can sign up for Google Apps using that domain. We can then change the settings for that domain. I won't get into all the technicalities of it. We can change the settings for that domain to have the mail point towards Gmail so that those officer positions that we want to set up email addresses for, user accounts for, are set up in Google Apps, and rather than just forwarding to somebody's email address, we can actually have a Gmail address for those officer positions. And then every year when those positions roll over, we simply roll the account over. And if there's any emails, conversations in the emails, documents that are pertinent to that officer position, all of that rolls over to the next person. We can also use it to sign up for other services. Like right now we have Google Places. We have a YouTube account. These were all signed up with using personal accounts that were signed up for with the club email address that we had set up for Google, the club YouTube account. But using a Google Apps account, we can do this through accounts that are part of our Google Apps organization, so that as people leave the club, or as responsibilities for these things move to other individuals within the club, it's easier to shift the management of all those other services as well. We don't have to worry about trying to get contact info from so-and-so who had it 2 years ago, but we don't remember who has it now, and we can't find it, so now we might have to sign up for another one or try to contact so-and-so to get it changed over. It all rolls over. The ownership stays within the club and that officer position. So aside from just email and those kind of benefits, how could other things like Sites and Google Docs benefit our club? Well, Google Sites is what I have been recommending to pretty much the entire division for a club website. If you've been to any of the TLIs that we've had up here over the past few months, you've seen that I've probably been up there giving my 20-minute spiel on Google Sites and why we should be using that instead of something like FreeToast or WordPress or custom developed sites, that kind of stuff. The reasoning behind that is because out of all of these services, for those of you who don't know, I'm an application developer, web application developer. I've been designing and programming websites for half of my life, for about 15 years. In that time, I've also come across pretty much every tool that exists out there for creating websites, from FrontPage, Dreamweaver, content management systems like WordPress or FreeToast or Google Sites. And having used all of those, I can tell you that Google Sites, in its current form, it didn't used to be the case, but in its current form, Google Sites is by far the easiest to use. Getting in there and creating new pages, editing content on the pages is extremely simple. You're 2-3 clicks away from adding a page once you've logged in, and when you're editing the content on the page, you might as well be working in Microsoft Word. It's that easy to arrange content on there. And there's a whole host of services where you can just plug stuff in, whether it be calendar, gadgets, or things like that. So that's really beneficial in terms of advertising. It makes it easier for the Vice President of Public Relations to manage that website and get the word out there for us. And that, in this day and age, is by far the most important portion of our advertising. That's where we're going to get the most exposure. But also with things like documents. Right now, if we were to keep a spreadsheet that had a list of all of our members and contact information, and the VP of membership had that, and then it rolled over, and then they had to get to somebody else, or another officer needed it, and they're emailing it back and forth, and somebody makes some changes and emails it to somebody else. You might have 3 or 4 versions of the spreadsheet sitting out there, and you don't know which one is necessarily the correct one. Well, in Google Apps, it's got these great collaboration features. You can do things like creating a spreadsheet, share it out with other individuals, even if they don't have Google accounts, as long as they have the link, they can access it. And they can log in and make changes while you're in there making changes. You can be on the phone talking, making changes if you want to, and you can see each other's changes as they're happening. You can do that with pretty much anything in Google Docs. It's not limited to just spreadsheets. You can do it with Word documents. If we want to go through and revise our club handbook that we have, we could do that in Google Docs and have a team of people working on it at the same time, making different changes, and everybody can see what's going on, chat, make comments, all that kind of stuff at the same time without having to be in the same room. It's extremely useful. So in terms of ease of use, in terms of functionality, in terms of collaboration, I have seen no equal to Google Apps. And the best portion of that, it's free. That's one of the best parts, is the price tag. So Google Apps is obviously a pretty big tool. It can be used pretty heavily. So rather than go through and explaining a bunch of every little minute detail of everything, I'm going to open it up to you guys to ask me questions about it, and I'll hopefully be able to answer you. So are there any questions about Google Apps or about why our club should be using Google Apps? Martha?
What about privacy? Do they have, as Ron just said, nothing from Google is free, so.
There is no free lunch,
That's
despite
right.
what the people buying it for you.
So what are we giving them when they give us this free stuff?
Well, here's the thing. Google makes money through advertising.
Right.
I don't care what service you're using in Google. I don't care whether it's Docs, Gmail, Sites, just their search tool, anything. They make money through advertising. And that doesn't change no matter what service you're using. So when you're in services in the free edition of Google Apps, like Gmail, you'll notice that there are ads that can show up on there. That's how they make money from us.
Oh, okay.
In terms of privacy, when you're using Google Apps, everything is encrypted. They use the HTTPS protocol. It's a secure protocol where it's encrypted data going across. It's not just straightforward text going across the internet. Everything's encrypted. And Google's actually spreading that across to pretty much all of their services. So it is extremely private.
Okay.
And that's not necessarily where they need to get their money from. Well,
You know, Josh, I'll agree with you on an awful lot of Google Docs. There's an awful lot of barriers that can be overcome by using it. One of the barriers that I ran into with a couple of groups trying to use Google Docs is the number of people who don't want to have a Gmail account. We all have enough email accounts right now that, you know, and I would say that a third of the respondents and some of the people I work with that just do not want to have another Gmail account.
great example. That's why I like Google Docs, because with Google Docs, you don't have to have a Gmail account to collaborate on a Google Doc. You can actually, there's a setting in there for sharing called share with anybody who has the link. And they provide you a link, and you can email that link to somebody, and they click it, they access the Google Doc. Anybody that has a link can get in there and edit it.
But you got to invite them into it. It's not a permanent thing. You have to invite them to that each and individual document that you work with.
Or collections. Collections are a set of folders that you can set up in essence. And when you share a collection with an email address, somebody that's you want to share it with, they have permission to access anything within that collection, not just those docs. So while there are a few more benefits to having a Google account if you're using it, you don't necessarily have to have a Google account to use it.
And then the other thing I noticed with it is that if you have complicated spreadsheets, transmission speeds become very vital. That if you're trying to work with any large document on editing, everybody's got to be on DSL or something, because if you have slower internet speed, that document trying to get uploaded and refreshed constantly really does take a beating on it. So you kind of sometimes spend time in a meeting if you have it. I know that's very few times you're going to have 5 people work on the same document on it.
Well, aside from having different people working on the document, even though that can cause some things, Google is doing a constant refresh on things that are going into the document kind of in the background.
Right.
And if you do have a bunch of people working on it, yeah, it can slow down, but we're also living in a world where sites are no longer designed around the limitations of having to rely on, or to base their site on the thinking that everybody that's going to access it could have DSL, or could have 56K dial-up. When I first started doing web development, you couldn't have an image on your site that was over about 8 kilobytes. And you had to keep things very compact. Whereas now, it's very common to see even thumbnails of higher quality that are at 40 kilobytes because the standard for the internet can have that. So Google Apps does rely on that. You do have to have newer browsers for it, like Internet Explorer 6 isn't supported, that kind of stuff. But I think the benefits of using these tools, the power of the tools and what they can do for the clubs far outweigh any of the potential downsides that could be there from people that may have older browsers or slower connections. And I think that it would definitely be more beneficial to try and utilize these tools than to hold back from utilizing them and fall behind technology for fear of a small percentage of the users not being able to utilize it. Almost, I'll have one more question, then I gotta cut it off.
Is there a site manager in Google Apps to manage who gets access to it, so you can keep Sally Touch All from getting in there?
In Google Apps, when we set up users, you can set up specific permissions on pretty much everything. And then when you create documents or sites or anything at all within Google, the person that creates it becomes the owner and they can share it out. And then you have administrators within Google Apps itself who can do things like transfer documents and sites, their ownership over to somebody else, all that kind of stuff. But there's a wide array of permissions and delegation tools within the Google Apps Administrative Console that allows you to take care of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
I'd love to field more questions, but that's pretty much all the time we have. If you do have additional questions, please see me after the meeting. I'd love to answer any questions that you may have. And thanks for listening to me today.